Hello, my name is Sean O'Doul, Odubhghaill. And the first thing that you need to know about Irish people is that we have very, very long surnames that are very difficult to pronounce. It's unintelligible to most, and it's one of the easiest way that you can tell the difference between an Irish person and an English person, because the difficulty is that they'll both speak the same language. Another thing you need to know about Irish people is that when they go into any shop, cafe, restaurant, anywhere in Brussels, if they're having any trouble with the language, and they will, the person behind the counter will be very kind and will say, "English?" And every Irish person has to take 1 second and just think to themselves, should I say, "No, I'm Irish," or are they talking about the language that we should speak? So it's a complicated affair. In any event, Irish people started moving over to Brussels in significant numbers in about 1973, when them and the UK joined the European Union. Early Irish commissioners were thought to be like pioneers, arriving on the gravy train to the scene of Brussels, which was viewed in Ireland as kind of beige and unhappy and administrative and technocratic. Over time, that relationship softened, and Ireland and Belgium got to understand each other a bit better. With films like In Bruges, this kind of solidified the relationship even more, and Brussels in specific is still a hotbed of a ton of different kinds of Irish language activities and activities engaged by Irish people. 17th of March is the biggest day in the Irish person's calendar in Brussels. It's St. Patrick's Day, on which people go on a march, usually around the Grand Place or up and down the Ansbach, all the way up to Saint Contenaire, where they play a lot of bagpipe music and a lot of revelry and drinking follows. At one time, there were 14 Irish bars in Brussels, and that should tell you something about how prominent the Irish community are. These Irish bars are kind of like centres of diplomacy where everyone is welcome, provided that they're willing to pay a lot of money for a beer that is not as good as the beer that they have elsewhere in Belgium. Everyone is welcome, and it's a requirement to speak English, and these pubs are hosts to a lot of other kinds of activities that the Irish people in Brussels engage in. Irish language speaking circles, sports enthusiasm groups, and just general meetings between parliamentarians and other people working for the Commission, such as in Kitty O'Shea's, which is probably the most famous bar across from Schumann. I think the most interesting thing about Irish people in Brussels is their ability to network and their ability to laugh and to get on. It's sort of a lot of merriment follows Irish people around. And I think that that's what makes them idiosyncratic and sort of unusual, especially against their English language colleagues. And so I myself am part of an English language comedy circle called Insecure et Dangereux that's been touring for about a year and a half, and it's host to many, many, many Irish comedians or want-to-be comedians. Other activities in Brussels include, as I said, Irish language speaking circles. The Irish language is really, really important to the Irish diaspora here in Brussels, given that it's endangered. Only about 30,000 people speak it on a daily basis in Ireland. And in 2007, the European Union recognised it as a modern language. Next year, in 2022, Irish will go off derogation fully and will be recognised and have to be every single document released by the European Union will have to be translated into Irish. So it really solidifies the connections between Brussels and Ireland. There's an interesting secret about Irish people that happened not far outside Brussels in Leuven, in which the first ever Irish language dictionary was drafted by a bunch of Franciscans in the year 1608 in the Irish College. There's still very strong connections between Brussels and Leuven, and what separates the two is a parish, an Irish priest-founded parish called St. Anthony's Parish in Crineham, Religion, I think, like it is to people in Belgium, is quite prominent. It's quite important, with a mixture of the very religious, the post-religious, and the secular. When Irish people first moved to Brussels, from what I understand, it's necessary to set up a social circle of some kind, which is most easily facilitated by the Irish Perm Rep to the European Union or by the Irish Embassy. What happens then is that people are put in contact with other people. The Irish are very networked, very well networked, as I said, but this has the risk of people becoming sort of cocooned. And there are a lot of people, I feel, in Brussels, including myself, I'm partly guilty of it, that keep to themselves, that only speak with Irish people about news happening in Ireland, and only consuming Irish cultural fare such as Guinness and potatoes and crisps. This runs the risk, I think, of Irish people not encountering Brussels and its great richness, and actually seeing it for what it is, and seeing how many different nationalities live alongside them in Brussels if they would take the time to sort of look beyond their immediate social circle. I think it's absolutely incumbent on Irish people to do this at the moment. Irish people primarily gravitate towards Saint-Gilles and Schumann, with a desire to, I think there's a view that if you're only going to be living in Brussels for 6 months, which is the average stay of a stage, that it's important to live as close as possible to the European institutes. So commonly, Irish people will live in Schumann. If they're more settled or if they're here for the long term, they'll live out by the European schools, Walloway Saint-Lambert and UCLA and the rest, or in Crineham, or in Tervuren, where there's a British school to which a lot of Irish people have graduated as well. Before Corona times, there was a real tendency for Irish people to go back to Ireland as frequently as possible. It's cheap. Ryanair fly from Zaventem, as do Aer Lingus. The flight is an hour and 45 minutes, and the proximity allows this connection between the two countries to go on, which I think limits how Irish people engage with and encounter Brussels as a city, as a peopled city. There are a lot of people who feel uncomfortable if they go longer than 2 or 3 weeks without visiting Ireland, because Ireland plays such a symbolic role in their lives that they have to see it and they have to set foot in Ireland as frequently as possible. According to StatBell, there are 12,400 or so permanently registered citizens of Ireland living in Belgium, or naturalised Irish citizens who have now become Belgian. There is also a general feeling that Irish people do not register when they stay here, particularly those who are only going to be in Brussels for 6 months, because they're afraid of the commune. They're afraid of the linguistic challenges that will be posed as they go there. They're afraid that they'll speak Dutch very badly, or that their French will make them sound like a child trying to speak French. Raising children in Brussels, I think, is a challenge for Irish people, and I think that there is a desire to try to replicate as closely as possible the experience of growing up in Ireland, in Belgium, and so they will give them opportunities to play Irish sports like hurling, camogie, ga, which is the Irish version of football that you can play with your hands. It's quite a spectacle to see. And they get an education through English with the addition of many, many other languages as well. I think it's a very rich experience indeed, and the people that I know, the sort of third culture kids who grow up in Brussels, the Irish kids, have an incredible skill set and just a great deal of languages that help them kind of advance in their career, and quite quickly. Irish people, it seems, besides kind of mercantile expeditions back and forth, the first significant volume of Irish people came over by boat as in exile in 1608, and they arrived in Leuven with the intended purpose of going to Rome to ask to the Pope to raise an army to help them to fight the British. Instead, they stayed, as many people end up doing when Irish people move to Belgium. They stayed for a long time. The next thing that would happen, the next significant volume influx of migrants would have been around 1973, when there was a necessity to have European representation as Ireland joined the European Union and started to sort of solidify its power and to solidify its presence in Brussels, even though that power was very minute and Ireland was and is a very small island nation comparatively.